Hey folks, this is Kalani. Revendreth, the highly anticipated vampire zone in Shadowlands, was recently enabled for testing, so let's take a look around. I want to go through the general aesthetic of the zone and how everything looks, talk a bit about the Revendreth Covenant that you'll be working with, the typical creatures and NPCs you can expect to run into, touch on the dungeons available in the zone, and also talk about the story towards the end. I will keep this as spoiler free as much as possible, and I'll give you good warning before we venture into big spoiler territory, but basically I want to show off this amazing zone so you can see how the expansion is shaping up. Before we dive in, if you haven't yet heard, we are streaming over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We're having a blast exploring the alpha. You should stop by and say hi sometime. If you catch this video early, we're probably live right now. From the first few steps you take in Revendreth, you can already see this zone is going to be absolutely amazing. If you enjoy the gothic, vampiric, Castlevania style or theme, you're going to have so much fun with this zone. We managed to explore pretty much the entire zone, and some of the views you can get are beautiful. They did an amazing job with all of the castles, the spires, the towering turrets, the ramparts, and all of the individual estates on some of the lower levels. Revendreth is all about politics in the best possible way. The Sire Denathria stands at the tippy top of Venthea's society, with the powerful harvesters serving as major leaders, and then the lords and ladies scrambling for influence and power beneath them. And of course there are plenty of underlings fighting for their own share of anima, which has become increasingly difficult in every Shadowlands zone due to the anima drought. To follow this overarching theme, the entire zone is split into very distinct districts. You start in the Pridefall Hamlet, where your pride will surely be left behind. You can see what will probably be the portal to Oribos behind us here, but any soul sent to Revendreth is sent here to repent for their sins in life. You learn about the Sin Stones and what they mean, and what the overall goal is of Revendreth: to reshape an unworthy soul into someone who can move on to one of the other paths in death. When you've been cleansed and unburdened, you can choose to leave Revendreth for one of the other three zones, or to join the Venthea. That's how it is for normal souls anyway. The player characters are a little bit special. There are some smaller estates like Darkhaven that are struggling a little when you first get here, but at least all of their roofs are being well kept. There are quite a few quests that have you work through minor side stories related to the well-being of the estate, collecting anima for the required tithes in the castle, and solving mysterious murders. You know, the standard small town drama. All of the buildings in Revendreth look amazing, and it's not just the outside. The dev team has paid particular attention to the interiors of all of these grand houses, cathedrals, and castles. Going through this zone was a treat for sure. As you work your way through the story, you'll be introduced to more influential characters and grander areas of the game. You'll purge areas that have fallen to the Venthea rebellion that we get caught up in. The Halls of Atonement is a fantastic example of this, and it's super cool to just wander through the streets of another city. It reminds me a lot of Suramar, except now we have vampires, blood, death magic, anima, castles, and treacherous rebels. But if you enjoyed the whole "this is an actual city that we're exploring" part of Suramar, you're going to love Revendreth at least twice as much. More if you like vampires. And eventually you do get to meet the leaders of this place, Denathrius and his court of harvesters. The area around Castle Nathria is pretty fantastic, and again, it just amazes me how much you can actually explore. If you can see a wall or rampart, chances are you can get up there with an elevator and start exploring. You can get so high and so close to the castle. This zone is going to be a treasure trove for all you explorers out there. Looking up at the looming castle is always an amazing scene too. I can't wait to see what the raid looks like inside. Part of the story does take you inside the castle, a few spoilers here in this scene, but you can see the interior of Castle Nathria looks just as cool as the outside, and from this little glimpse it's going to be a huge environment inside. I can't wait for the raid testing to start so we can get a better look. I think they were smart to have the first raid in one of the best looking zones. I think Revendreth might end up being a lot of the players' favourite zone to work through from what we've seen so far. Even though some of these areas are quite well established, that's not true for the entire zone. Some areas are quite run down and at risk of falling off the edge of the map. Literally, the lack of anima doesn't just affect how healthy the Shadowlands populace is, it seems directly tied to the well-being of the land here as well. Revendreth seems to be suffering more than some of the other zones due to the anima drought. The Endmire is one particularly bad spot. It's one of the lowest areas you can get to, and it's far from high society. This is the recesses of the zone. All of the unwanted creatures and creepy crawlies gather in the mire, and it seems like there's a lot of runoff from the castles and estates. That looks like anima, but there's supposed to be an anima drought here, so maybe it's something a little less pleasant. Either way, it creates a very hostile environment. You actually get a debuff while in this area that increases the shadow damage you take the longer you're in here, and you need to find braziers and torches to ward off the darkness and restore your soul. It's an interesting mechanic, and it certainly drives home the "this is not a nice place" factor. If a soul finds its way into the Endmire, it's not doing a very good job at repenting, but it's not quite bad enough to just be thrown into the maw. A really cool touch for this zone is the carriages. You can ride around in style, and these free taxis will take you through the majority of the zone, and even some not so friendly areas. You can sit back and relax as the game takes you around Revendreth, giving you a chance to explore without having to actually do much. It fits the entire theme of the zone quite well, in my opinion, and as you might expect, there are quite a few quests where you'll be riding around on carriages too. It seems like the transport of choice for all these lovely lords and ladies. The most important thing you're going to need to watch out for are the elevators. This zone isn't really built outwards, even though it's quite a large zone width-wise when you actually look at it, but the real key here is the verticality. This zone is built upwards. From the Endmire at the bottom to the smaller estates on hills, the keeps and larger cathedrals above those, and then the castle sitting pretty at the top. When you start the zone, all you have to do is look up to see how you're going to progress, and when you get to the top, or at least as high as you can go, you have some amazing views looking back down, but you won't be able to get anywhere without the elevators. Thankfully, they are everywhere. Let's just hope they don't ever break down. The way the zone builds upwards makes this a very unique zone, and not only is it gorgeous to look at, but it's a lot of fun to play through, and even more fun to try and explore. One thing's for sure though, we're all going to get lost. Most of the NPCs you'll be interacting with in this zone will be the Venthyr and their lackeys. The Venthyr are the vampire chaps. There's not really any other way to describe them, and even if we tried, everyone else will just call them the WoW vampires anyway, so that's what we have to work with. The Venthyr are souls that have accepted their fate, by the sounds of things, and who chose to remain in Revendreth to guide future souls along their path by tormenting them and torturing them. But hey, everybody's got to have a job, right? Then there's also the Dredgers, servants of the Venthyr who aren't exactly mindless, but they don't seem to have much choice in the way they're treated. Many of them refer to themselves as soulless, and I'm pretty sure they were created to serve, so they might be kind of like elementals in that case, but either way they're always doing the heavy lifting. And then we also have the Gargoyles, enforcers and soldiers for whoever has anima, actually. They have no life without a supply of anima and will serve whoever gives them life, or at least that's what we were told when we revived a few of them for a minor quest. Some very fancy gargoyles stand at the head of the military in Revendreth, so I guess they're the muscle for the Venthyr. Because Revendreth is the place bad souls go to repent, you'll also see a lot of souls wandering around, caged up in the process of being tortured or otherwise tormented. I'm sure it's all for a good cause though, right? That makes up most of the key NPCs that you'll run into. There are plenty of creatures hiding in the Endmire, and there's a forest surrounding the castle which is home to all sorts of beasts that the Venthyr hunt. You actually go on a hunt with them too. I guess the dev team just couldn't resist adding in that particular staple of high society. The Revendreth zone also has two dungeons. The first is the Halls of Atonement. A large section of that estate is used in the dungeon as you work your way through to correct a few problems and remove a few unsavory individuals from an important location in Venthyr society. It's quite an open dungeon and we had a lot of fun running through it on stream. There is one other dungeon, the Sanguine Depths. We don't know anything about this one yet, except for the small details we can glean from the dungeon journal. It seems like there's a great secret buried beneath the castle of Revendreth, and this huge river of what looks a lot like anima is just flowing out into the abyss, or, more likely, into the maw. What exactly is this amount of anima doing here in the first place, and why is it being sucked away? Is this the main cause of the drought that Revendreth is experiencing? And why isn't something being done to stop it? I guess we'll get some of these answers in a later story section of Revendreth, because right now, we have no clue, but we do know it looks incredibly cool. Alright, let's talk a bit about this story. So big story spoilers for the next few minutes. I'll pop up a timestamp on screen for when the spoilers stop, so you can skip straight ahead if you don't want to hear about the story. Go ahead, I'll wait. A few seconds more. That should be enough, right? Okay, in Shadowlands we're a special type of soul because we're not actually dead. That's made very clear from the first time you get into Bastion, so I'm assuming it's going to be made clear the first time we go to Oribos. We're not sure how they're going to swing that, but the other key factor is that we can enter and leave the Moor. That's not supposed to be a thing. The Moor is meant to be a one-way trip, but we're a Moor walker. That makes us incredibly powerful in the eyes of pretty much everyone, so Sire Denathrius sends for us right away, a private little carriage to take us straight to the castle. But the rebellion has other ideas. They pick us up and drop us down into the Endmire. They don't want us to become a tool of Sire Denathrius. So that's definitely not ideal, but we can traverse the Moor, so a little mire isn't going to stop us. Then we work our way to our initial meeting location, meet the big dude himself, and get some powers for our trouble. That's the new Covenant ability, so you get this one pretty early on. Denathrius has more or less recruited us to help finish off the rebellion, because I guess they're having trouble with a few loose ends, and they need a Moor walker to take down the Accuser, who holds one of the powerful Harvester medallions. I guess the title of Harvester is more than just pomp and fluff. To take down this Harvester, we need to exploit her Sin Stone, and the Sin Stones of her underlings. That's when we really learn the power that these stones hold. If you know someone's sins, you can hit them where it really hurts. We eventually take down the Accuser, and she's taken away in a cage, never to be seen again. The Lord Chamberlain takes over the Halls of Atonement as his prize, and he levels up a bit in terms of influence. After that, we learn about breaking souls in the crypt as a little detour, little vacation, which ultimately leads to a huge hunt in the wilds of Revendreth, where the souls are terrified and we're all apparently having fun, but someone pops out of nowhere to ruin our hunt. But we'll let them off, because they teach us how to teleport to basically anywhere we want to with the other Covenant ability, Door of Shadows. This ability is insane, by the way, and it's going to be incredibly fun using it to get into all sorts of places we shouldn't be able to get to, but the Accuser is back, surprise surprise, and she wants to show us something. You step through the mirror into Dracula's castle, Denathrius's castle, and lo and behold, apparently Denathrius was behind the anima drought this entire time. I guess that explains why he's the last boss in the first raid, but from this point on you work with the rebellion as you probably guessed we would, recruiting allies, infiltrating estates, and eventually working towards overthrowing the current Venthia regime. I think it's going to be a great storyline when it's all fleshed out. Sadly, it only goes so far on the alpha right now. There are a lot of questions left unanswered, but that's the general introduction you get to the Revendreth zone. Alright, spoilers over. Hopefully that timestamp is accurate and I didn't plonk you down in the middle of telling you that... I'm kidding, no spoilers. It's a cool story so far though. I'm excited to see it expanded upon in future alpha builds. I can tell you that the Revendreth zone seems to introduce you to the Moor in one way or another. The Moor is a max level zone, but the quest wasn't finished yet, so it just skipped it for you. Right after that though, we were introduced to Torghast, which makes sense I guess. Revendreth is the last zone that you actually level through, at least the first time around, so having it introduce us to the max level activities in the Moor and the Tower fits right in. We didn't get to a point where we could choose the Covenant itself, but next to nothing about the Covenants has actually been enabled for testing on the Alpha as of yet, so we probably just need to wait for that. We are only on week 3 or so of the alpha testing, keep that in mind. The dev team has been pumping these updates out so far. One huge new thing to test every week is a fantastic pace. Let's see if they can keep up with it. But that's my preview of the Revendreth zone and the Venthia. This is probably one of the best looking zones we've seen in a very long time. The theme has been executed flawlessly, and it's an amazing zone to get lost in. You can explore the various levels, estates, castles, and everything else for quite a while before you see everything. I'm still finding areas that we didn't explore, and we tried to explore everything on stream. If you like vampires, gothic architecture, Castlevania, or anything related to Dracula really, you're going to have a blast in Revendreth. Revendreth. I guarantee it. What do you think from what you've seen so far? Do you think you would go straight to Venthyr from the look of Revendreth, or would you still need to see the other zones before deciding? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to explore the alpha alongside us, you can join us live at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and our subscribers on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find links in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.